Coming up next on For Profit, For Purpose, meet Tracy Klinkroth, serial entrepreneur and social butterfly. And let me tell you, if you don't know her, you know of her. CEO of Epiphany Research, a marketing research firm, chit-chat, Epiphany events, and the organization where I met and fell in love with her, The Power of She. Tracy Klinkroth is an inspirer, she's a visionary, and she's got some cool projects coming up that you're going to want to know about, and also hear how she brings purpose to all that she does. I made my first million in real estate when I was 33 years old. I didn't believe it was possible to even be a homeowner after growing up in 20 different homes. I've spent my life learning the game of real estate entrepreneurship, to have the freedom to parent and guide my own schedule, and to express my purpose in the world. What is your purpose? How do you put that purpose behind what you do for money? I believe you were meant to make an impact. My real estate company was built around my purpose of having people discover what they are truly capable of. I'm Katrina Eileen, and this is my podcast, For Profit, For Purpose. It is gold, Tracy.
Yeah. So but also I probably in some ways didn't want to work that hard. I should have done my research, because that's a lot of commitment. Like that woman eating only at Starbucks for a year. I mean, granted, she got a lot of press, although you didn't hear about it, but she got a lot of press.
You know what? That's because I don't hear about anything. I've got 5 kids, I've got 2 businesses, and that's all I do.
But so what were we talking about?
So we were talking about, is it actually possible to buy from women-owned, only women-owned businesses for a year?
It is.
But I had to tell you, that's where I fell in love with you, was chit-chat, right? Inspire, educate, and give exposure to women-owned businesses. Because I think there's nothing you can do in life like have your own business that gives you freedom, like you were talking about, and just really allows you to express yourself and kind of sing your own song and kind of make your own way.
The thing, though, that we, particularly as women, have to be mindful of, and is that we need to make money running our business. There's over 12 million women-owned businesses in the United States, and women-owned businesses are growing at a higher percentage, a higher rate than the general. This is before COVID. This is all before COVID. But I think it's something like 3% of them gross $1 million or more. And then the number of solopreneurs like I am, who are making, who make not enough to get by, is there's a lot of them. And some of them, it's okay because they have a partner that they can rely on financially. But also I know that a lot of those women would like to be able to make more money and to not have to rely financially on their partner.
So you're really in touch with women entrepreneurs and business owners in general. And how is COVID, what are you hearing? How is COVID, what's the truth of the matter?
Yeah.
How it's really impacting.
Well, so many small businesses are owned by women. Like if you go to Fremont, for instance, I've gone to that neighborhood and just counted the number of women-owned businesses. The majority of them that are the clothing stores and boutiques, the restaurants, the, gelato store, the hair salon, they're owned by women. I'd say probably like 80% of them, or women in there. There's a lot of spouses working together, particularly in the restaurant industry. And they're really the backbone of America. Unfortunately, as we move to big boxes and Amazon, they have their place for sure, but we really need to be buying more local and more from people in our community.
Is that really a part of why, your why in this trip and bringing,
it's my why is being added to, but by the day, and for sure that's where the superhero entrepreneur part comes in, because I really think, firstly, like we were talking about originally, I think being a business owner is one of the bravest things that somebody can do in their lifetime, because there's so much.
You have great vision. So you must have visuals and logos, or like this. I just imagine this. I just imagine this woman superhero,
It's
right?
being worked on right now by my designer, who is a guy who's amazing and fabulous. So I can't wait to see what he comes up with. But yeah, I want to share the stories of these hardworking women, and sometimes there'll be a man in business with her, because I think it's so important, and I think it's really interesting just to hear their stories. I don't think any of us as little girls or boys think about, oh my gosh, when I grow up, I want to, work at Walmart or work at, Target. Not that there's anything wrong with those jobs, but I don't think that most people are saying that's what they want to do.
Like that's fulfilling, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Like the job, but creating your own boutique, creating your own bakery, your own restaurant, your own real estate firm, your own professional services firm. I mean, that's when you're like, okay, I can't find what I want, so I'm going to create it. I'm going to create it bigger and better and whatever. Like, what's your why? Why did you end up going into business for yourself rather than just working for another?
Right. Well, because I wasn't able to find, right. I wasn't able to, exactly what you said, right. There's, I think there's a different way to do it. And there is. And when you're, and honestly, our firm, everything we're about is helping each one of our brokers create their own expression, right. And create their own brand, their own identity. And as many brokers as we have, there's that many different kind of approaches or perspectives at the same thing, right. It's like, if you're like I imagine like real estate, or like we're looking in there's this big building and it's got windows the whole way around. And every one of us is looking with just a different perspective, and seeing just a little different take. And I think that's really important to keep. I think that's really important. And I think that's something that's actually, I feel really missing right now, as people are becoming so polarized and thinking that their one view in one window is right. When we can actually communicate and collaborate and say, hey, here's what I'm seeing. Here's what I'm seeing. Well, here's what that means to me, right? Then we can actually create a full picture. And so I think that's what having your own business is, right? It's just a different take at solving the same kind of problems. The only reason business is around is to serve people, right?
Well, and you're also taking it a step further, because I know you are very philanthropic. And you incorporate that into your brand, from the get-go.
Yeah.
So that's something that I found in my research of women-owned businesses. It's so many women-owned businesses do give back, whether that's a percentage of their profit or sponsoring local teams, or, they give back in a way that, sure, the large foundations like the Ford Foundation and Target and stuff, they all have foundations that they give. But when a small business owner is giving, 3%, 10%, 2% of their own income, that's a pretty big deal, right? So,
and I think also when you have that, when you have the boots on the ground, you have the real human connection, that's different than being able to just, don't get me wrong, it is fantastic, these companies. Even Amazon, right? Like what they give, and our nonprofit receives through Amazon Smile. And, I'm thankful for that. And I'm glad that they do that. And it's not the same as having someone show up on, and say, hey, we're going to do Sunday family dinner here at the house, and, bring the kids in, we're going to teach them how to shop, or we're going to teach them, something about how to prepare their food, or, or just have a family meal and play games, and so that's not, it's time and it's some money, but it's that connection that you just can't replace with money. And we need money to be able to make the difference we want to make. So,
for sure.
That's interesting. So you find just across the board, a woman-owned business is going to have more of that. What is that? More of that connection, or they're just going to give back?
More of a social entrepreneurship mindset, where it's a triple bottom line, where it's not only about making profits for themselves and their company, but it's also giving back to the community, whether that be in time, but also in profits. There's many brands that were even unbeknownst to me when we're buying them off the shelf, knowing that, a portion of the proceeds goes to whatever their they're.
Well, and it's funny to hear you say this, because what's coming into my mind is, hey, you get what you focus on, right? And what you believe is what you see. And so I do believe that you'll find this will be a common thread in women-owned businesses. But I also know that, Tracy, everything you do and everything you're creating is giving back and creating value first. And so you've created this whole company based on lifting women up and creating, helping them have a voice and helping other women, so they can reach back, and helping other women come along. And, so we clear the path for each other, we collaborate. And so, then there's my question, well, is that just because that's who Tracy is, that she sees this and that she's able to bring that out? And, or is it, is it really a male-female thing? I don't know. But what I do know is everyone I meet at every event that you put on, and everyone who, loves Tracy Klinkroth, they're that same mindset. And so you're an attractor of that.
Yeah, I'm a good people collector. For sure. And I love being the conduit. Like that's another why. I love having people come to me quite often and say, do you know anybody that does XYZ? I'm like, well, I don't, but I bet you somebody in my network does. And I love being the connector. And I don't always know how that ends up, but sometimes I'll find out months later or years later or never. But when I hear that, like, oh yeah, I've been doing business with so-and-so. And I'm like, oh, where did you meet them? Oh, I met them through you. I'm like, oh, okay. Awesome. I love that. But in terms of with the power of she, it is it's not, because I have been challenged on this by a few people in terms of, well, isn't that sexist if you're promoting women-owned businesses only, or you only want to buy from women? And it's like, power she is pro-women. It's not anti-men. And there's a big difference. Yeah. So I love men. My father is one of my biggest cheerleaders and most important people in my life. And so, yeah, just women and girls is my jam. That's my thing.
That's awesome. And, and it's kind of like what you were talking about, right? When you're in business for yourself, you're able to look and see, what is your jam, right? What is your thing? And then, so this is yours, and this is someone else's, and this is someone else's. And if we do more of what you're doing, which is empower entrepreneurs, then we're going to have more of that. We're going to have more of a holistic answer, rather than, something that we just regurgitate.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot of, right now, with everything that's going on in our country, there's been a lot of interest in wanting to buy from Black entrepreneurs, to lift up the Black community in that way. And I think that's a great way to lift, because there is a huge gap between the median household income of a Black household and a white household. I think it's like $40,000 as opposed to like $75,000, something like that. And as you know, home ownership amongst Black people is significantly lower than it is amongst white people.
And that's one of the greatest creators of wealth and transfer of wealth from generation to generation.
Yes. Yeah. And so it's great to buy, a pair of earrings from a female entrepreneur, or a Black, or a woman of color, or a dress, or go to her restaurant. But if you can find one product that's a reoccurring purchase of yours, so think about that: toilet paper, laundry detergent, milk. I don't know what it is that you use on a regular basis, but if you can switch out what you're buying right now from probably either from Kraft, Procter and Gamble, there's like 10 companies that run everything.
Nestle.
Yeah, Nestle, Johnson and Johnson. If you can switch out one of those and buy either from a woman-owned business or a person of color business, like, you're just making such a difference in that person's life, and also I think in the world at large. Because then we can use our money to go do awesome things, right?
Right.
Hopefully.
Yeah, and and it just gives more influence and more power when they've got more to work with, right? To have yeah, to not just have, yeah, when I hear all those names you just mentioned, I'm like, it's just same old, same old, same old, nothing, just homogenous, no real flavor and, essence of what it is to be alive and, be with other people. Instead, it's just kind of like, I don't know,
Well,
consumerism.
there's also a lot of, if you really look at a lot of the multinational companies, there's a lot of not great things that they're doing in terms of our environment and, big agra and big pharma and things like that. And so not to get down that rabbit hole, but buying soap from, there's a really great brand that I can't think of the name right now, but it's local, Washington. It's a husband and wife. They met when she's white, he's black, just happens to be that way. She was in the Peace Corps in his country, which might have been Tonga. I'm not quite, I don't know if I'm getting it correctly. And she was in the Peace Corps there. They met, they fell in love, moved back to the United States, and they have this amazing company. It's a soap company, and they have hand soap, but they have shampoo and body soap and conditioner, and they give a percentage of their proceeds goes back to charitable nonprofits in the country of the husband's origin. I can't remember.
That's cool.
Yeah. And it's a great quality product.
Such a love story. So Richard Branson said the brands that will thrive thrive through the years are the ones that have a purpose beyond profit. And so I really hope that that's the truth, right? Because if that's true, and what that means is that they have to have, they have to care about the environment, or they have to care about the people, or they have to care about the lives that they're impacting through whatever it is that has them be in business.
Yes, and there's been studies done that shows that millennials, I'm not quite sure of what is the current kids today, is that Gen Zs?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, millennials for sure, they care about that story, and if they're a good steward of the environment. And I think that a lot of them care less about having more stuff, and they like to know that kind of what they donate to, how it's made, where it's made, what it's made of, what their manufacturing practices are, that kind of thing.
So, and like millennials and the younger generation, they just get such a bad rap, and they get so much, like there's just so much negativity that you see. But man, they have got something right when you think about how they look at things, right? And then and the values that they're driven by.
Yeah.
Something that is inspiring to me.
Yeah, me too.
So you touched on real estate, and you talked about the median income between a Black household and a white household, but also you talked about wealth and so there's a lot of different ways to look at real estate, right? Just all those different perspectives. There's, is it an investment? Is it an investment? Why would somebody own real estate own a home versus rent? And there's a lot of different views. So throughout, our recent history, it's like the American dream, own a home. And I actually have a client right now, and he's selling his home because he just wants to be a renter. Right. And he's like, you know what, it is not for me. And he has a lot of really great reasons, but and so those are his. And give me your thoughts or your impressions about real estate, pro, con. I mean, just be candid, right? Like, what do you?
Yeah. So I'm a renter. I have been my entire adult life. Again, it was very freedom oriented, even though I have lived in the same building for like 20 years. So I remember when I first moved to Seattle from Boston, I was like, this is such a beautiful city. I want to actually see it. I want to see the water. I want to see the skyline. And quite honestly, I couldn't afford that. Or I didn't think I could afford that. And so I walked into this building that I've been in for so long, and it has a beautiful view of Lake Union and the skyline. But owning a home has never been high on my priority list. But I would say, almost all of my friends own their home or condo. So I don't talk about it a lot because it makes me feel guilty is not the word. I've gotten over feeling judged, I guess, by the fact that I don't own, because I do, for all the reasons you just said. It's an investment in yourself. It builds wealth. I'm so impressed when I meet, people who were, when they bought a home when they were like 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. I'm like, oh my God, I was partying in Boston. I was not thinking about buying a home. So it's like, I respect people who had that kind of mindset. But there's also this thing called life, and that life does not always turn out the way that you imagine it's going to when you're a young, idealistic girl / woman. And yeah, I thought I'd get married. I thought I'd live in not necessarily the suburbs, but I'd live in a home with a spouse and, I don't know, maybe have a kid or two. And life just did not turn out that way, for whatever reason. And so also, if I'm really honest with you, which I want to be, home ownership was also, I felt like I couldn't afford it. Meaning I had some credit card debt. I had some tax issues. I'm really good at doing my thing, my business. I'm not so good at the bookkeeping. I'm big picture. And, things piled up for a while. And when things pile up and you don't have the best credit score or you owe some back taxes, it's like it's hard to get a mortgage, right? So then just like years went on and I'm like, okay, I'll stay at my friends' homes and dog sit and babysit, and I'll get, I'm not going to, when I walk the dog now in Wallingford and I look at these cute little beautiful homes, there's definitely a little pang of like, I'm never going to, those formative years, those 30 to 50, age, like I didn't buy a home. Wasn't living in a house and doing all that. But then I have to be honest, because I actually did buy a home of sorts in the RV. I'm going to be living in that, right, for a year. And I'm renovating it and I hate it.
You hate the renovation or
I hate the renovation. I am not a manual labor kind of girl. I am a more brain person, and I gotta tell you, I have so much respect. I have so much respect for people who did carpentry and build homes and renovate and all that stuff. But home ownership also, that was a negative for me in that I didn't want to mow the lawn. I hate gardening. If something breaks down, like the water heater, that's pretty expensive, right? So I like being able to call somebody and say, hey, come fix my toilet, or
yeah. It's interesting that you say that. So tell me if this is something that would be interesting. So when we, I build houses, we renovate, we flip, we do the whole thing, right?
I know. So in awe of you.
Things like that. Oh,
yeah.
It's the same thing. I mean, no, you and I, I'm in awe of you. I love what you do. I love how you just have people do more, and you create these rooms full of people that are just there with this incredible sense of lifting each other up and the sisterhood and womanhood. And it's like, oh man, I love what you do. Mm-hmm. So thank you. I just, all that to say,
that's what you do.
And so what I found is the sellers that we've been working for this past year, oftentimes, literally, they are just handing me the keys because I do all this other stuff, right? So they're just handing me the keys on their way out the door. They take the stuff they want, leave the garbage. And, then we bring our crew in and we do our thing, right? And they get contractor rates, they get, great prices. They get someone who understands how to create a product like a flip, right? Mm-hmm. And so they're really happy with that. They just, there's nothing they do. They take their stuff, give the key, and then that's it, right? And, they pay a few bills and are thrilled because when they get their own bids, they realize, holy shit, this is like half the price.
Yeah.
And then, and then they're closing before you know it. But what I was thinking is, because I've had several conversations like this recently, like even this guy who's selling, right? I'm thinking, well, why does home ownership have to be like this thing that's so burdensome, right? Because if you have to take care of a home, that is like having another job, right? So you have to learn everything there is to know about oh, water heaters and furnaces and roofs and insulation and, electrical and all these things that can go wrong, or like, doing the lawn. And a lot of people won't do their own lawns because they won't hire somebody because they, for some reason, have this idea that, oh, if I own a home, that I need to do that.
Yeah.
Which is funny because if they're a renter, it never occurs to them that they need to do that. So there's some dot that's connected there. So I was thinking, well, what if, because you can put together, like, what if you were to help people buy homes and then manage the home for them so that in a way that it wouldn't cost them any more, but all this stuff is done for them, right? And it just comes as part of a package. So I don't know, I'm just like totally making this up.
Yeah.
But, one, I would love that.
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't cost you really anything more, but you just have somebody who knows how to manage those things. So now instead of paying $25,000 for a new roof, you're paying 10, and you have money that's set in a reserve. So, you don't even have to think about it. It's already there. It's done, right? Kind of like your taxes and your insurance are paid and your mortgage payment. I don't know. Would that like solve some of the anxiety?
Well, you know what? I think I just am commitment phobic.
No, well, that's different.
Yeah. I literally just got a dog. I'm 55, and it's the first living thing besides this plant that I can't even kill if I try to, that I've committed to. So committing to a home and committing to a place, even though I've lived here 25 years. Isn't that weird? Yeah. Maybe that's why I'm single.
Huh.
I mean, I get the whole thing. I see friends make money from owning a home. One of my good friends, she bought a home probably 25 years ago and lived in it by herself in Shoreline, and then met a guy and got married to him and moved to Woodinville and had a huger home. But she made lots of money on that home that she bought. But for a couple of years, she had to make sure she had the money in her bank account when the hot water heater went out, or when she had to fix the fence and that kind of stuff. And so that is just like another stress that I guess I didn't want to have. But then when you do think about how much money, when I think about how much money I have paid in rent, and then when I hear people say, oh yeah, my mortgage is, I'm like, oh my God, my rent is more than your mortgage. So
yeah. That's interesting. So
I'd like to buy real estate as an investment tool, but I feel like I can't afford it in the Seattle area. So maybe that's like buying something in Vegas or Arizona or something where it's a little bit cheaper.
There's a lot of people who do that, right? They buy something and just straight out of the gate, because of the area that they're buying in, the rents that people pay is so much more than what their mortgage payment is. Yeah. So yeah, that's totally possible. Yeah. There's a lot of different ways to invest in real estate without having the burden. And even here locally, right? Like there's a lot of things that we do that, it depends on how you structure it. And, if you're buying from someone who wants, they may sell on owner financing because they want something that's well secured. They want a great return on their money. And, and then it's secured by their property that they know. And so then they'll sell it. And because of the terms that they're selling it on, they're making more, but you're buying it at a rate that you can still make something on it as well as an investment. Yeah. And that's looking at real estate as as an entrepreneur.
Yes.
Okay. And so you're not anti.
No, I'm not anti. At this point, I got caught up on things, and then COVID hit, right? Mm-hmm. You need to have a good mortgage person, which I'm sure you do have, that can be creative. Mm-hmm. That the whole first time home buyer thing, I understand that there's different
grant programs, there's down payment assistance, there's zero down, literally. Yeah. But you know what? So I've worked with clients who, even with all that, like I had this one client, he was the president of the pilots union in the Port of LA. And he'd been a merchant marine, traveled the world, and he had spent his whole life avoiding commitment.
Oh, I should meet him.
And he was so much fun. I mean, when we looked for a property for him, his one criteria, because he just wanted something for when he had time off. So it was, his one criteria is it had to be within an hour of SeaTac. And he was just such an interesting guy that everything we looked at was just in these outlying areas. We met the most interesting people, and I had a ton of fun doing it. And when he was in his mid 50s when he bought his first property. And when the mortgage, or when the loan commitment letter came through, it said loan commitment. We were faxing back then. That's how old it is. He's like, something I've been trying to avoid my whole life. So,
yeah, that is real. Commitment phobic it's a real thing. Yeah. Not just with, love relationships, but with homes too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, even when we'll renovate properties, and I swear they become like kids. You put so much time and energy and love, and, you put yourself into it that by the end you're like, oh, I don't know if I really want to sell that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. I could see that for sure. Yeah.
So
what's really interesting to me, and this is not real estate, but it is a way of how people are living, is that since, going on this road trip and watching a lot of YouTube about people who renovate their RVs, but also I'm in a couple of groups that are like solo female van life or RV life. There are a lot of people that are selling their homes that are going out for whatever reason and living in their van, some really awesome vans, by the way, or their RV. And yeah. I don't know what that is. I mean, I think for sure, are there a lot of people selling their homes in Seattle right now?
There are. Yeah, there's a pretty big, there's a lot.
And they picked up right away, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And even with all the people who are selling and kind of like what almost sometimes feels like a mass exodus, there's so many people, the in-migration's so high and so strong in the jobs that they're being snatched up. So yeah. And what's funny is I have a friend who, she's a real estate investor, real estate broker. She buys, renovates, rehabs, flips, all of that. And she and her husband just bought this last year, they just bought an RV, and that's where they're living now.
Really?
Yeah. And so, you can look at real estate as investment, which is what they do, and they're very good at it. But that doesn't mean that has to be what home is.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? There's something.
Come back to it. Yeah. I mean, I might love it, or I might be like, oh my God, get me back to, four walls rather than on the road. But
you never know.
I think COVID has opened a lot of people's eyes to what's really important. I think it's similar to when I started my business 20 years ago. It's like, why the hell not? No time like the present. Because again, being very transparent, 80% of my income was coming from events. I had flipped it. I was doing market research and events on the side, and then I flipped it several years ago, and I was doing much more events and parties and doing less market research and not paying attention to that side of the business. And thank God I have one pretty big research project I'm working on right now, but I'm making 75% less this year than I did last year. Yeah. And so I was, on top of it, thankfully, and I got the PPP money, which we'll see if that's going to be forgiven or not. And I also got the EIDL, which is a loan, but it is a low interest loan that you have 30 years to pay off. It's 3.5%. So, use that to pay off some bills and this and that. And I don't know if people can use it to, put for a down payment on a house or not.
I think that might not be the intention of it.
Yeah, I think so too.
Unless you're.
But for me, it's just so that I have it there, because I don't know when. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know when I'm going to be able to do events again. So I was like, I miss my parents. What am I doing here? I'm working at home on my laptop on the one research project that I have, and hanging out, and every once in a while socially distancing, seeing a friend, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And picking up garbage outside on the streets of Seattle.
And I know, that was so amazing.
I'm like, I can do that. I was saying something on Facebook. I'm like, oh my God, I'm really scared, excited, but also scared to go on this journey. And my friend said, Tracy, what else would you be doing but sitting in your apartment, working on your laptop, seeing friends every once in a while with your mask on, and picking up garbage? I'm like,
Taking empowerment.
you're totally right.
You know what? She is right. And there's so many people who are, I mean, like, I have to tell you, I'm a little bit envious. A little bit envious. Like, you're talking about these things. I'm like, I want to go with you.
Well, you will come with me vicariously.
We all will. I know. I think you've got a big idea here. And I think you're going to see it grow faster than you can imagine, because you're doing something and discovering things that we all want to know what's out there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so you're answering that question for us.
Yeah. And introducing you to hopefully really amazing and interesting women and men along the route.
Yeah.
It's not going to be just interviewing the women business owners. I'm also going to be stopping at, you know, if we can, you know, different places of interest along the route. You know, one thing.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Well, I didn't think about this until somebody told me about it. Being really cognizant of COVID and which states you can travel through from which states. And so that's going to be in and of itself an interesting thing too.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that'll be really interesting to see.
Yeah.
Kind of a fascinating deep dive into a lot of different takes on this. What was I going to ask you? What do you need? So October 1st. So is there anything you still need to get prepared? Are you already there?
Oh yes, I'm going to continue to need. So I'm self-funding all of this right now, which I cannot, you know, withstand doing that because as I already said, I'm making 75% less than I was last year. So this is really a labor of love. And I will be doing some sort of crowdfunding or Patreon. I don't know if you're familiar with Patreon.
Tell me about that.
Patreon is a really cool thing where it's like being a patron of someone. Mm-hmm. So I've done it with a couple of people. So if you love what somebody's doing, maybe there's a writer that you think is amazing, or a blogger, or a photographer, or a person going cross country interviewing women business owners and sharing their stories, you can sign up on Patreon, Patreon, and you can pay $1 a month, you know, $3 a month, $100 a month, whatever you want to that person. And which it just shows that you are supporting what he or she is doing. So I'll be setting that up, because the women that I'm interviewing, I am not charging them to do this. I want to be able to pick the women that I want to interview and be part of this reality series, for lack of a better word, because they interest me, and I don't want to ask women to pay to be part of that. So I need sponsors. I need larger sponsors who do have the money to put up, you know, 10, 25, 50, 100 grand. I'm fine with, not fine with, their logos would appear on the RV, which I'm scraping the damn vinyl off of it right now.
You're like, I'm preparing the space.
Preparing the space, because it's going to be professionally designed and wrapped in the power of she, but plenty of room for logos. And then I just, you know, I hope that people follow me, and that the network grows, and people watch the stories and share. And
so where will we find you? Like, how do we watch this? How do we, like, what's going on?
You'll be able to go to thepowerofshe.com.
Okay.
Right now, the website, it's under construction. As my designer is creating that, because we had to have a strategy session, because it's been, I don't know about you, but it's all up in here. I've been dreaming and thinking about this for 9 years. I didn't know it was that long, but I found notes on Google Sheets, and I'm like, wow, I've been thinking about it that long. So I finally regurgitated all of that in a digital form and gave that to him. And so he's working on the website. So thepowerofshe.com, that will be a place where you can find the stories. The Power of She on Facebook as well. _Power of She on Instagram.
So I would so I'm really excited to meet these women entrepreneurs and, you know, local people who are doing cool things. And I would also love to see, like, just your behind. I mean, are you going to do like behind the scenes? Like, okay, here's day 261, and
yes, for sure. So I think I told you off camera that there's so much to learn in terms of, forget the whole renovating the RV, but that goes into the social media and the interviewing and the lights and the audio and making sure that you're posting on what? Instagram, Facebook, setting up the YouTube channel. So there will be a YouTube channel. And yeah, I mean, I want to also share those stupid things like, I have no idea how to empty my toilet, when I get to the first that I go to, or like, here's this really cool old man that I met, and hey, I mean, I like that, right? I like hearing that from other people's travels and lives and stuff. So I want to share that as well.
Oh, that's cool. I love that you're doing that.
That will probably be on my personal Facebook page. And then I guess I will also share it, if I can figure out how, on the Power of She website as well. I'll be blogging.
So logos, so companies can get exposure, funding, right? Like that's one. What else? How else? So how can people support you and be involved? So you've got, if they've got some money, Patreon. So
which I have not set up yet, but there will be a Patreon site.
And then you'll have a link to that on like Power of She and your social media. Okay.
Yeah.
And then how else? How else could people be involved or help?
If you think what I'm doing is really cool, just share it with friends, all over the country. When there will be I'm hoping there's going to be some sort of map showing my route. So when you say, oh my gosh, you're going to be in Dallas, Texas, you might want to check out this business. Or, hey, my friend lives there, and they'll let you park your RV in their driveway. I mean, that I'm open to that too. So if you have friends who want to put me up for a night and have my RV roll on up into their hood, I'm all good with that.
That's fantastic. All right.
Because I'm going to be sharing also, I'm going to be looking on the route. I'm going to be discovering, right? So we pull up into Dallas. I'm like, okay, I need to find a woman-owned restaurant to go eat at. And I'll be asking and discovering that way too. So it's going to be interesting.
That'll be interesting to also see the different welcomes that you get, right? When you ask that question, right? Where is there an awareness of that? Or is that something that people really like?
Yeah, I always feel it's interesting. I feel very self-conscious asking that question because I think people are going to be offended. And some people it's funny because I do that here in Seattle. I'm like, oh, is this owned by women? They're like, no. I'm like, oh, I'm trying to shop women-owned restaurants or women-owned. Oh, why are you doing that? And I say, because, it's a way to shrink the gender wage gap and gender funding gap and just to get more exposure to women-owned businesses. And most of the times I get, oh, that's really cool. And sometimes, very rarely, but I get, oh, well, I just like to shop whoever has the best. I'm like, yeah, I totally get that. And there's a lot of really awesome women-owned businesses too. So why not share that with the world?
And nobody is all right. So.
Well, it's going to be very interesting driving across this country.
Yeah, that's the part I'm really looking forward to see. Right. So I think it'll be. I'm really wanting to watch and see. Oh, okay. Yeah. What are the reactions that you get? Who are the people that you come across? Kind of what's the different flavors in the different areas?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I have to be open. Too to people who have, different opinions. And so that's going to be interesting.
I'd love to see the outtakes. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm really excited, but at the same time, I wouldn't say terrified, but also I wake up in a hot, cold sweat sometimes. And but I know that if I did not do this and I was laying on my deathbed, I would regret it. And I want to live with no regret.
That's your thing then. That's your calling. So we didn't get this recorded, and I thought this was just some of the best advice I think I've heard. And you were talking about the first two women that you're going to be interviewing. And you said probably the best advice I can give is?
Best advice I can give is to just reach out, whether that's via phone or email. Lots of times we think, oh, they would never talk to me. They would never take my call. They would never say yes to me asking them to be interviewed or me asking them for advice, whatever your thing is. And I typically find that at least 50%, if not more of the time, people are interested and gracious and will get back to you. Even if it's sometimes to say that I'm not interested, I'm too busy. But, you never know until you try. Was it Wayne Gretzky, who I'm not a big hockey fan, but he said something like, you miss all the shots that you don't take.
Right. I've heard that.
And, I've made some amazing friends, you being one of them, just by reaching out to people and saying, hey, I want to feature you on a panel at an event. Hey, I'd love to interview you. Hey,
And I have to tell you, when I got that call and you said that, I was like, oh my gosh, really me? Because I just admire, I've been to your events and I just look up to you and admire what you've created and the voice you are and the kind of the heart you are.
But people loved you. Well, thank you. And so I want to acknowledge that. Thank you. People loved you on that panel. That whole panel was great. A lot of people learned about Katrina Eileen on that panel and your heart and your philanthropic mindset, as well as your shrewd entrepreneurial mindset, right? So, and we became friends, via you being on a panel. So,
we did.
And this goes back to, I was doing market research. I was doing a research gig for the Seattle International Film Festival. I wasn't getting paid, I don't think. I think I got a free pass. And I was like, gosh, I wonder what Sundance Film Festival does for their audience research. Oh, I picked up the phone, like, hey, can I talk to your director of marketing? And I got patched through to this woman who to this day is a friend of mine.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, Sundance Film Festival is never going to talk to me. Well, she did. And she was is an amazing person. And so, yeah, pick up the phone, send the email.
So what would that look like? How do you take action on that? Is it, because that's what I'm always thinking of, and maybe that's the shrewd side, right? I'm not sure, but I'm like, okay, well, that's incredible advice. And it's so easy to hear great advice and think, oh yeah. And just because you have the thought, I have the thought or the ideas, then I'm like, oh yeah, I'm doing that. But it's not until you actually take very specific actions that you're actually doing that. And so, so for you, it sounds like it's already a habit for you. You just have an idea, somebody you want to connect with, and you do it. So what about somebody who's never done something like that? How do they get their toe?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it is a habit because I've done so much market research over the years, and I've had to either stand back in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s. I had to stand in a bank with a clipboard and try to get people to talk to me to do a survey for $1. So if you can do that, you can pick up the phone. You can also just send an email that's how both of these women so far that I've recruited for the road trip interviews was via their contact form. And I have to say, if you want something from somebody, make sure it's a legitimate gesture, but complimenting someone, saying that you're a fan of their work, saying that you so admire them, saying that you want to feature them as like with you, it was like, you're an influential woman, I want to feature you, and lots of times people are like, who, me? It's very interesting. I think women do that more than men, but compliment the person that you want something from, not because you want something, but because you legitimately feel that towards them. You're reaching out to them because you want something, whether that's you want someone to mentor you, want someone to be on your podcast. Sales is a little different, right? Mm-hmm. But if you want something from someone because you're looking for information from them or advice or even just, friendship, getting to know someone. How many of us have Facebook friends that we think are super cool, but we don't really know them in real life?
Right.
So set up a Zoom call and get to know them or meet them for coffee.
You know what? That is a great idea. That is a really great idea.
We should all be doing that. I had intentions of doing that during COVID because I'm like, oh my God, I love her, but I don't really know her. Like I know her because she always comments on my post or vice versa. And I mean, yeah, why not once a month even just pick somebody that you know but don't really know and just do one of these, you know?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
That's good. So start out with finding a couple of people, sending an email, or reaching out via social media, or but I think the key thing that you said there was to first like take the time to get to know a little bit about them and see what it is that you authentically admire,
Yes.
right? That would have you want to connect with them.
Yes.
And then acknowledge
them. It's like a job interview. You wouldn't go into a job interview not knowing anything about the company, right? So yeah,
right.
Both of these women, one of them was suggested to me by a friend, and one of them I Googled when I was looking for influential women in South Dakota. And I just read through a very long list of influential women in South Dakota, and her story and her business just really riveted me. And I had a little bit of a girl crush, you know, and an admiration, you know,
yeah,
and an interest in her story. So if I'm interested in her story, I hope that you all will be. So and she said yes.
That's so cool. Well, more to come. So so how do we share, like, so you'll put it up and then you'll let us know, because I would love to. There's so many people.
Girl, I'm trying to figure it out too. Yeah. The YouTube channel, or do I do it on Instagram TV? So I need to spend the next month figuring that out entirely. But for right now,
I'm sure that there are people who know that.
Sure. I would love to even just get a couple hours of that expert social media person's, you know, mind. I'll pay them, but that is not my forte. And when I start researching it, I'm like, oh my God, there's so much to do.
Right. And actually renovating the RV and figuring out the social media, you know, those are the critical things that have to be done, like the mechanics of it. But what you and only you can do is reach out to these women and create that spark and create that connection, because there's nobody who can do it like you do.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. Well,
I can talk to you forever, but I'm sure people are going to get bored. So we have to.
Well, I can't wait to start. I'd love to give us updates as you get closer, right? Or along the way, right? Over this next month.
Follow me on Facebook, Tracy Klinkroth, Klinkroth. Be nice, hopefully, you know. You can follow my journey on there, because I would imagine I'm going to still always be Facebook Living on my personal page too.
Okay. So if we follow you on Facebook, then we'll get those updates.
Yes.
Okay. Sure. And then if if there's anyone out there who's a social media expert and this is their jam too, then connect with Tracy and look up, why do I have a hard time with this? Patreon.
Patreon. Patreon, which I have not set up yet, but there will be. That'll be all over the place too. Like a dollar a month, right? If I had, you know, a couple hundred people, $1 a month, then
yeah. And then what I want to talk to you about later offline is let's find out how to get Katrina Eileen's logo on your RV.
I would love that.
All right.
Thank you so much for having me. I adore you, and I love everything that you're about. And whenever somebody new meets you, they're like, I love Katrina. And I'm like, I know. I'm a good people collector. I know.
Well, I love the people you collect. So I'm just in your tribe, and that's where I'm going to be.
Yes. And congratulations on starting a podcast. That is no small feat. So you know what? It doesn't have to be perfect.
Thank you.
It just has to get done.
Yeah. You got to start somewhere, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much. And thanks for your encouragement and everything that you've really inspired me throughout the years, and especially being a woman-owned business. It seems so daunting. And then when I see your events and I hear the other women and what they've been through, it just makes it seem doable. So, there's I give you a lot of credit in my life for the things that we do. So thank you. And we'll be following you.
All right. Thanks, honey. Have a great night. Bye, everybody.
Bye, Tracy.
I would love to hear about your purpose. I'm always looking for like-minded people to collaborate with, interview, or do business with. Reach out to me directly at 425-230-4499. Not sure what your purpose is? I'm happy to share the guide that helped me discover mine. If you'd like that guide and a free copy of my Amazon bestselling investment book for real estate, visit my website at katrinaeileen.com. If this podcast brings you value, please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you for listening to For Profit, For Purpose. I would love to hear about your purpose. I'm always looking for like-minded people to collaborate with, interview, or do business with. Reach out to me directly at 425-230-4499. Not sure what your purpose is? I'm happy to share the guide that helped me discover mine. If you'd like that guide and a free copy of my Amazon best-selling investment book for real estate, visit my website at katrinaeileen.com. If this podcast brings you value, please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you for listening to For Profit, For Purpose.